My name is Shannon Teague, and currently I serve as the Assistant Director in the Office of Improvement and Innovation with the Ohio Department of Education. Just like to welcome you this morning and thank you for participating as Ohio's 21st Century Community Learning Center grant reviewers for fiscal year 21. You are a vital aspect to our grant competition. 21st Century is spread out throughout the country and literally in every single state, including Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And so right now, all of those areas, for the most part, are having a grant competition as well. And so the push from the United States Department of Education is to ensure that we have a fair, meaningful process for our community organizations and school districts that are interested in serving out of school time programs for schools in our state. And so not many states, but our state for sure provides this training to all grant readers so that we can ensure you're able to look at our grants and identify pretty much exactly what we're looking for in our state. And so I just want to tell you a small bit about 21st Century, introduce our staff, and then our training will begin. So the 21st Century Community Learning Center program is funded by Title IV, Part B of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, as renewed by the Every Student Succeeds Act, provides grant funding to states to support academic enrichment opportunities during non-school hours for children, particularly students who attend high poverty and low performing schools. We provide the 21st Century Grant by means of a state-level sub-grant competition. We allocate our funds to the schools based on the results of this competition. We provide funding to, and you'll see applications from schools, school districts, community-based organizations, faith-based institutions, and other agencies that are intended to provide programming for their communities. The programs are meant to help students meet state and local student standards in the core academic subjects, including reading and math. So you will see programs that focus on reading enrichment and math enrichment. And they will offer students a broad array of enrichment activities that can complement their regular academic programs and offer literacy and other educational services. Also, the 21st Century program is intended to provide a variety of youth development activities that support a range of outcomes for our participating youth. Lastly, you will see programs that will articulate their family and engagement activities. And so you want to look for all four things in the grants. And so as the training goes on, we'll be more specific as to what to look for in those four areas of math, reading, youth development, and family engagement. I want to introduce our staff to you today, and you will be meeting some today, and then others are definitely on the line to support in other ways. So in our office, we have Ludia Durillian, who serves as our grant manager. We have Charmaine Davis-Bay, who many of you have already connected with in selecting our grant readers and providing a large portion of today's training. You have Charlotte Jones-Ward, who is also on point today to assist with the training. She also serves as an education specialist and monitors many of the grants in the community. And then you have Tabitha Palmer. If you haven't connected with Tabitha already, you will throughout the process. She assigns your applications, and she will be connecting with you, just like Charmaine, throughout the read process. Just know that you will contact, if you need support, both Charmaine Davis-Bay or Tabitha Palmer for this process. Also, you will hear from our contractor, Dr. William Lodeman, who will walk you through also a large portion of today's training. He's our contract statistician who literally helps us score, not necessarily score, but pull all of your scores together and statistically figure out who is awarded in our state. So again, it's a very smooth process. It's a very well thought out process. And so again, we thank you for participating and being a part of Ohio's 21st Century program. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, for that wonderful introduction ahead of our training today. Information about the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant program and the introduction of our staff. Thank you so much. Um, Again, everyone, this is Charmaine Davis Bay. I'm actually going to show myself. I don't think I've ever done this before, but I just wanted to make sure that you all saw my face. I don't know if you can see me, but I will be facilitating the training moving forward with the assistance of our staff. So let's go ahead and get started and moving forward with the agenda. We would then, first of all, we will go through an overview, an additional overview of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant program so that you can get more information about the program itself. We will then go over, provide you an overview of the CCIP application. I know many of you have heard that term before. We will definitely be going through that application with you so that you know how to navigate the CCIP as part of your obligation during this process with completing your calibration application and your subsequent assigned applications thereafter. We will then go through grant reviewer expectations, as there are many of you on this call who are veterans to not just Ohio, but to other grant review processes across the country. Many of us, if not all of us, have expectations of our reviewers with regards to this process. So we're going to go through that in detail. As well as a review of the FY21 grant scorer rubric and calibration application. As I previously communicated with you all via email, we will give you time during this training to actually go in with your the calibrations you were assigned. You're going to go into the CCIP where you will then input your comments and scores. If you can complete it during that time, that'll be great, but you will have time after the training to do so. Once we return back from you completing that task, Dr. Lohman will lead you in an exercise where we will go through several prompts of your application, where you will then put your score in the chat box, and then we will ask several of you to share your comments as well based on the expectations that we've provided you. And then at the end, we're going to do some question and answer. That way you can walk away more knowledgeable than you came in and more comfortable with being a reviewer for the state of Ohio's 21st Century Grant Program. So again, feel free to ask any questions along the way, and one of our wonderful staff members will be able to assist you as well. So let's go ahead and move forward. So as part of your participation today, participants will be able to do the following. Understand important components of the 21st Century Grant Program. Understand what is expected of a competitive grant reviewer for Ohio, as well as understand how to score using the electronic process to document scores. As I reiterated before, there are some of you who have participated in grant review processes for different states. As a gentle reminder, each state's process is different. Please review the guidance and supporting documents you have been provided in advance thoroughly to understand what our agency looks for in a quality application for 21st Century. As well, we are happy to share that we do have a number of reviewers from across the state of Ohio and the country. I know there are several of you that are coming to us from the western part of the United States, so you're here kind of early, so thank you for your time this morning. So after we completed our vetting process, we are now confident that we have chosen the best of those who have applied to assist our agency and the Office of Improvement and Innovation under the 21st Century Grant, with the 21st Century Grant Program, to determine which of our submitted applications is deemed quality and deserving of an FY21 21st Century Grant Award. So again, Shannon gave us a brief overview of the program, but we wanted to give you again a reiteration. What is the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program? As stated, it's a federally funded program recently authorized under ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, that has been in place for several years now. The funding provides opportunities for children who come from economically disadvantaged families and attend low-performing schools to receive additional academic interventions, youth development enrichment, and family engagement opportunities outside of the normal school setting. The purpose of the 21st Century Grant Program is threefold. All funded programs must provide opportunities for academic enrichment to assist students in meeting the state academic standards. Number two, they must offer students access in a broad array of additional services, such as those that focus on youth development, social emotional learning, civic engagement, and nutritional and physical health. And number three, offer adult family members of program participants opportunities for educational development and engagement in their child's education. Please refer to the FY21 request for applications document you received in your invitation email for details about 21st Century, including approved activities, which I believe is on page 15 of the RFA. Several reminders for you as we move forward through this process. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, is the focus of the 21st Century Grant Program, which includes expanded learning time during the day and out-of-school time that aligns academic supports and interventions to the state academic standards and needs of students. Additionally, ESSA broadened the allowable activities to include such things as internships, apprenticeships, and career and technical programs for those that are in our option 3 or those that serve middle and high school students. Applicants can apply for 3 grant options. And so we're going to go into what those options look like here shortly. We are in 5-year grant cycles here in Ohio. For those that have been around for a while, you know that at some point we were under 3-year grant cycles, but now all of our grants are under 5-year grant cycles. We're going to go into more detail about performance measures as well. Charlotte Jones Ward is going to touch base on that aspect here shortly. The prompts are now, we have between 1 and 19 prompts, and that is dependent on which option you have been chosen to read. So with option 1, there are prompts 1 through 17, and then prompt 19 is included in that. Option 2, you are reading prompts 1 through 17. And then if you're reading option 3, you are reading prompts 1 through 18. So for options 2 and 3, you'll see that you will have the 19 prompts. So if as you review, you're going to put NA in the box that does not pertain to your option. And so again, once we get into the CCIP, we'll go more into that. But just for clarification, there are a total of 19 prompts, but depending on which option you're reading, that will determine which prompt you would answer. The partnership agreement, again, for those that have been with us for a while, this has not changed, but for those that are new to 21st Century here in Ohio, this partnership agreement is an agreement between the applicant and its identified primary partner. It must be signed and attached in order for the application to be valid per grant requirements. And this also pertains to the non-public consultation form, the same entity. But again, with this year, due to many districts being closed, due to the ordered school building closure period due to COVID-19, and unable to attain signatures for their partnership agreement and non-public consultation forms, as a result, the online application, which is the CCIP or the Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan, has been adjusted so that applicants could still submit their applications without having this in place. So essentially, some of our applicants could not complete their partnership agreement or their non-public consultation forms because of access to those that needed to sign them. So if you have an application that does not have those forms attached, please do not hold that against them, as they were allowed to submit without the information. If those applicants are awarded, though, they will be mandated to upload all documentation in order to receive any funding. So it will not be necessary for you to comment or score on this if they do not have that documentation. For the partnership agreement, though, please make sure that they still input the appropriate partnership in the prompts within the application. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I believe Nina's going to walk through the application, so she'll show you that.
Are you gonna what are you doing now?
Could someone please put your phones on mute? Thank you. Please follow along in the FY21 RFA that you were sent to in advance. And this tool, which is like something that you definitely need to work with throughout this process, will allow you better understanding of not only what should be included within the applications that you're reviewing, but what makes it a quality application. Okay, so to go into the next part of our presentation, discussing the types of grant options, we're going to kick it over to Charlotte Jones Ward. Charlotte, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the training. I'm going to talk about the types of grants, and to start out with, applicants will implement 21st century program using one of the following. Option 1 is our expanded learning time, and it is our non-traditional programming option to offer programming during the school day. This option is available to elementary, middle, and high school students. Applicants choosing this option must offer expanded learning hours by establishing a school schedule that increases the total number of hours for all students by a minimum of 300 hours. So the hours must be above the amount offered in either the school year 2018-19 or 2019-2020, and reflects a total of a minimum of 1,245 hours for elementary schools and 1,305 hours for secondary schools. Those applicants utilizing the option 1 must calculate hours for the expanded learning time in school and in summer only. Hours in before and after school will not be considered for option 1. All new applicants must include evidence that demonstrates the school time expansion or significant progress towards school hour expansion. Evidence can be a school calendar and bell schedule, and/or a school board resolution documenting the approved change. The focus of option 1 must be reading, math, positive youth development, and family engagement. And those documents should have evidence of those documents uploaded into their grant. Moving on to option 2, out of school time. This is our traditional after school, and it is available to elementary school students only. So applicants choosing this option must provide comprehensive out-of-school time programming at a school site or at a school or a site during the school year to include before, after, and summer for a select population of students. Summer is encouraged but optional. The focus of this option 2 programs must be, again, on reading, math, positive youth development, and family engagement. So our last option is option 3, out of school time. And it is available to middle and high school students. And applicants choosing this option must provide comprehensive out-of-school time programming at a school or site during the school year to include before, after, and summer for a selected population of students. Summer is encouraged, again, but optional. These programs must include a focus on college and career readiness and/or dropout prevention strategies, as well as additional support and programming as required under the grant, such as the reading, math, positive youth development, and family engagement. Moving to the next slide. So, new measures. I'm going to talk about our performance measures. So performance measures are designed to show student impact in a number of important areas based on state evaluation results. And the objectives are designed to describe what applicants should demonstrate if they are positively affect student outcomes. For example, programs will be able to demonstrate educational, social, and positive behavioral changes. Indicators are specific expectations for each objective and are what applicants will provide or deliver as a part of their program. For example, it is expected that 100% of sites deliver enrichment opportunities in literacy that use evidence-based strategies and practices, and that 100% of programs provide at least 2 hours on average of literacy enrichment per week. Next slide. Performance measures include objectives, and the objectives of the program are to impact, again, reading with a focus on literacy achievement, mathematics, positive youth development, and family engagement. Next slide. Objectives are what we expect applicants to demonstrate, deliver, and ensure as a part of their programming. So I'm going to just walk through the objectives, which Objective 1 should demonstrate education, social, and behavioral changes. Objective 2, deliver high-quality programs that affect student outcomes in attendance, academic performance, decrease disciplinary actions, or other adverse behaviors. Objective 3 should ensure that out-of-school activities target students' academic needs and align with the school day. Next slide. Objective 4, deliver evidence-based educational development opportunities that promote family involvement and family literacy. Objective 5 is the last objective, and it is to establish community-based organizations and local education agencies that provide ongoing partnerships of mutual support. So overall, before we move on to the next slide, I just want to say that overall applicants should address these performance measures by outlining clear goals, evidence-based strategies, action steps, and measurable outcomes to ultimately have an impact on student learning and student behaviors. So if there are any questions, we can answer those in the chat, but otherwise I'll just turn it back over to Charmaine to discuss key elements. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Char. I appreciate you so much for going through that piece of the training. Before we move forward, 2 items of business. So I'm looking at the chat, and it appears that a number of you cannot see the slides. So I'm going to pause the training recording now so we don't pick up on this. All right, so we are now back in the training. We had to take a brief pause. So now we are going to discuss key elements of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant process. So we're going to take a look at a number of things. So first, we have evidence-based practices. And these are practices that have shown to be effective ways of enhancing students' reading and math academic performance, youth development, family engagement, and college or career preparation. This is especially practices that are proven to be effective when working with after-school populations. So in the applications that you are reviewing, you will notice, for those that have been doing this for a while, that many of the programs that have applied will be using evidence-based practices to support the targeted populations that they are serving. And so, again, this is something that you should be seeing in the applications that you have been assigned. Next are federal resources coordinated and aligned. Applicants in their application should have discussed how they will coordinate with other federal funds received, such as McKinney-Vento, Title I, and Title IV. Internal and external resources. So applicants should be discussing in their applications how they will use their resources, such as facilities, expertise, in-kind donations, community donations, and services. And we are on slide 12. Professional development. Applicants here should have a sound professional development plan that provides ongoing training to address program needs and licensing requirements. For example, orientation, reading, math, youth development, family engagement, data collection, gap analysis, etc. So again, when you get to the section about professional development, they should be clear within their professional development plan what type of trainings they are having to address programmatic needs and licensing requirements. And the examples that I provided, such as orientation, family engagement, data collection, it should be clear on the types of trainings that they're taking throughout the year. If you do not see this information within their professional development plan, please score accordingly. Next, program evaluation. This is essentially who will be the staff person responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating program data. So that should be listed within their application as well. Sustainability. Applicants within their applications need to have a robust plan that addresses how they will continue the plan beyond their grant funding with 21st Century. For example, they need to describe their partnerships, other funding streams, in-kind services, how they will communicate success with their stakeholders, etc. Again, if they are missing some of this information or it is not strong enough to prove that they have plans for sustainability beyond this grant cycle, please score accordingly. Partnerships. So within partnerships, applicants should describe how they will establish working relationships with school day staff and their partners. The primary partner, who is the entity that they must have a partnership with. So for example, if the applicant is a LEA, which can be a traditional school district, a community school, or an education service center, they have to be partnering with a community-based organization and vice versa. So the primary partner here should have a clear role to support the program and evaluation implementation. The first being the applicant, who in turn partners with a local educational agency or community-based organization, as I just stated. This grant requires an applicant to have one primary partner. For example, again, if the applicant is a local education agency, your primary partner must be a community-based organization, and vice versa. Some examples, again, of LEAs are traditional school districts, education service centers, and charter community schools. Examples of community-based organizations or CBOs include faith-based organizations, child care centers. Colleges and universities are also included as CBOs. Please be mindful that although colleges and universities are higher educational institutions, this is considered a community-based organization. The program office reviews data to verify partnerships as well. So we again understand the importance of partnerships, so we will verify partnerships as part of those that are awarded. But again, please be mindful of the differences between LEAs and CBOs. Again, the partnership agreement. You will see some of your applications having that in place, and some due to access to school buildings during this time that will not have them. Please, at least in part, ensure that they have the appropriate partnership, primary partnership listed within their application under the appropriate section. If they do not have their partnership agreement in place, signed and uploaded, again, our program office will ensure that that is in place if they are awarded before they can draw down any funds with us. So again, if there's any questions about any of those key elements, please let us know during this training and we will be happy to clarify that for you. Moving on to the next slide, slide 13, indicators. So when we talk about indicators, these are the expectations of the Ohio Department of Education, and they have to be addressed in most prompts. An example of an indicator or expectation would be as follows. It is expected that 100% of centers will or sites will provide at least 3 evidence-based educational development opportunities to families of participating students. For example, family literacy classes, parenting classes, activities to support family engagement in the school and community, etc. Please note, to review the objectives and indicators, please go to the scoring rubric, which you have a copy of, but once you go into the CCIP within your grant score inbox, you will have access to your scoring rubric for each application that you will be assigned, starting with prompt 1. So moving on to slide 14, here is an example of the scoring rubric, which you will see once you are in the system. This is the CCIP scoring rubric. Within the scoring rubric, you will have the objectives and indicators aligned to the prompts. So if you go and look, the objective that you are looking at, this is the expectation of the agency, that is here. And then the indicator or prompt is the question or questions that they are answering as part of the application. They are addressing the objective in their response. So this is what you will be looking for in your the applications that you are assigned. And within the scoring rubric, you are looking at the application for scoring, which is a separate link that you have to click on to ensure that within the prompt that they are addressing, that they are including the objective as part of the answer that they are providing. You are to score based on that and then provide the appropriate comments to justify your score. To clarify, not all prompts will have objectives and indicators. The objectives are located, again, at the top of the first paragraph here, and then the next paragraph will be the indicator. Then the prompt will be the last paragraph. Applicants have responded to each prompt, and the responses should address each objective and indicator. Please note, if you are reading option 1 application, option 1 application, they should be uploading documents, which is here, as evidence of expanded learning time. Readers for option 1 will need to review the documentation listed under related grant application documents. So this will include, a board resolution and a programming schedule for those that are reading the option 1 application. For options 2 and 3, you will not have this documentation. The only thing you will see here if you are reading option 2 and 3 is the partnership agreement and or the non-public consultation forms, if they were able to get those signed and dated ahead of the system closing. Again, it was not immediate requirement for them to upload those documents, but they will need to upon being awarded. So again, option 1, you will have documents here. Typically it's the board resolution and programming schedule. For options 2 and 3, options 1, 2, and 3, you will also see uploaded the partnership agreement and or non-public consultation form for some of your applications. All right, moving on to slide 15. Now we are going to allow, and this is on the list of staff, we have some supporting staff that supports the 21st Century Grant Program. One of those individuals listed on the previous slide is Nina Pace. She is our financial program manager. Many of you may have seen that she was previously a part of the team, previously assisting us in various capacities, but now she is solely supporting us in the fiscal and operational piece. And she's going to go through the fiscal components of this grant. So I'm going to allow Nina to step in and take it away. Thanks, Nina.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Charmaine, for the introduction. So I don't have to introduce myself. My primary purpose here today is to ensure that grant reviewers totally understand the allowable use of funds. So when you're looking at the budget as well as the applicant's response to the budget narrative, where they break down the anticipated expenditures, you will be equipped to understand and know at least what's unallowable. First and foremost, you want to keep in mind that on pages 11 and 12 of the grant reviewer RFA that was provided to you by Charmaine Davis Bay, that's going to be your tool to ensure that you understand what the allowable and unallowable use of funds are. So I'll go through this briefly. Here in front of you on this slide are the allowable use of funds. So keep in mind while you are reviewing these applications that you understand that for their community learning center, they will have majority of the funds budgeted to salary and benefits. So that's expected. Another allowable use of funds, curriculum materials. So whatever curriculum to meet the grant requirements under academics, which is math and reading, positive youth development, and the parent and family engagement, whatever curriculums they choose to incorporate into their program, you will see those costs. Otherwise, they're going to be a collaborative or in-kind donations where they will not absorb that cost, but they are allowable use of funds to purchase curriculum materials. Also, transportation. So in their plan, if they're saying that they will provide transportation, you will see transportation cost incorporated into their budget. It may be a form of salary and benefits for a bus driver. It could be strictly contract, a purchase service for field trips. It could be maybe they're in a rural area and the program provides gas vouchers to the parents. So you will see multiple things based on whatever grant application you review in regard to transportation costs, but they are allowable. Supplies pertaining to your academic enrichment. That's another allowable use of funds. Next slide. Student, staff, and parent incentives. Currently, under the 21st Century Grant, and you'll see on pages 11 and 12 of the RFA, it provides the same allowable use of funds. So student, staff, parent incentives, program evaluation and sustainability cost. Under program evaluation, there is a maximum amount of evaluation cost that should be incorporated into a budget. The actual budget grid that is completed as part of the application process will not allow an applicant to exceed under their governance a certain percentage. But know that you should not see no more than $10,000 budgeted under evaluation cost. Okay, that's another thing. Youth development contractors. So as part of their positive youth development or even parent and family engagement initiatives, you may see that they're bringing in a speaker or some contractors to come in on a weekly basis to provide services to the students in the program. Those are also allowable use of funds. Next slide. Okay, so as you begin to review those allowable use of funds and the plan that's in the application, just keep in mind this is a very unique grant, and there are multiple things that in uniqueness that you may see as part of the budget. But one thing, there's a couple of things that you want to ensure that are not included. Unallowable expenses. So as I see it, this information is also available in your RFA on pages 11 and 12. But one key thing, and this is actually under the prompt that the applicant received, but food of any kind is not allowable to expend with your 21st century dollars unless they are tied to curriculum materials. So curriculum material would be a study island or whatever curriculum that they choose to purchase. And the key point here is that any curriculum materials, it would actually need to be tied to lesson plans. So that's the only way a program is allowed to utilize 21st century funds to purchase food. You will also see in the 21st century grant that a snack is an allowable, is a requirement actually for programs daily. This required snack is not to be purchased with 21st century dollars. So they do have multiple resources locally where they can tap into, and it's also part of the RFA where the 21st century program give them resources, but food is not an allowable use of funds. So keep that in mind. Also, grant writers. You cannot pay a grant writer with 21st century funds, nor can you purchase fundraising supplies. So fundraising supplies must be a donated item or some sort of in-kind or collaborative effort, but it cannot be, 21st century funds cannot be used to purchase those supplies. Also, for any parent nights, like I said, no food is not allowable use of funds, not with the 21st century grant. So if you have a parent night where you wish to provide food, or in their plan, that's what they're writing, they must also write that, one, they possibly may have a culinary arts or cooking class. So if they have a culinary arts or cooking class, and possibly the week of their parent night, the program plans to do a demonstration, that's a little different because they're not purchasing food for purposes of the parent night. They're purchasing food for the curriculum materials for the demonstration. So that's the reason why we just flat out say no food is allowed unless there's detailed information, and the treasurers are fully aware of this requirement. So if you see food in any of the plans, you want to really kind of dig deep to see, do they have a culinary arts or cooking class in their schedule? That's really the only way food is an allowable use of funds. Okay, so a vehicle purchase or building purchase, any type of building infrastructure is not an allowable use of funds. That should come out of the district's general revenue fund, or if it's a community-based organization, that should actually come out of their local general expense accounts. So with 21st century funds, you cannot renovate a building or purchase a vehicle. Next slide. Okay, so application setup. Keep in mind when applicants go into the comprehensive continuous improvement plan to submit their applications, the comprehensive continuous improvement plan is the CCIP. So the CCIP is the application tool for applicants, and it's also the tool for reviewers to review their applications. So Charmaine asked me to do a demonstration where I go through the applicant's point of view in the CCIP so you can see exactly where they're entering information and data. The funding application is into multiple parts. There's the 21st century performance measures. The applicants go into the CCIP and select their option, and there's the program design. So those are the first three sections. I will take over with the PowerPoint. Charmaine, is this the time you wish for me to do so, or do you want me to go through the application setup slides?
No, we can go through that right now. I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint. So for those that are watching, there will be nothing for several seconds, and then Nina's going to jump back on with her screen so she can walk you through getting into the CCIP for those that are new. So I'm stopping to share now. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Charmaine. I'm getting ready to attempt to take over. I saw the button to take over as presenter. So can you put, but it went away when you took away your slide. So can you put your slide back up, and then I'll try and attempt to take over.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I see that. Yes. So press, go ahead.
Okay, can you see now?
No, the slides are still showing up on the screen.
Okay, hold on. Okay, let me share my slide. Okay, so you should see my State of Ohio slide. Is that correct?
It's coming up right now.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, so once you are into the CCIP, and I'll have a different view than everyone, but this is from the applicant. So let me go to the first applicant, and I'll just do one example. Okay. Okay, so for each application, you will see the budgets. So you will actually see a PDF document similar to this, but you will see the budget. The treasurers actually are the ones, and I think I saw a comment from Charlotte where she said, don't worry about the purpose codes. Really, you don't need to worry about the purpose codes, because the treasurers will work with the applicant, and if the applicant is awarded, we'll worry about the proper coding. The first section that you will see that the applicant reviewed are the performance measures. So there are 5 21st century performance measures, and you will see this on each application. It'll have the 5 objectives for 21st century. The second section are the options. So these are the options that I think Shannon or Charmaine reviewed earlier. So the applicant can only choose one option. And I see that there were a couple questions in regard to the grade levels, and it's up for you to determine at that point. For option 2, the grade levels are mainly elementary, as what they described previously. Option 3 is for middle and high schools. So if there are any discrepancies, the program staff will be able to assist you. Okay, the next section is program design. So if you notice here under program design, now the applicant is giving you information on their program. Are they going to have before and after school programming? So if they do have before school programming, they will mark the box here. It is required that all programs have after school. This is an after school, out of school program time grant. It also goes into if the program will offer summer programming and so forth. And the other key things that will connect with the option are the grade level served. So under this section here, they chose option 2, and you see that they marked the boxes for K through 8. Okay, so K through 8 is an option 2 grant because they're serving elementary programs. Elementary grade levels. So for option 3, you should never see elementary grade levels. And depending on the mix and make of the building locally, you may find that you see a couple programs under option 2 are serving grade levels that you think are in middle school. So that's up for the program office to review and determine. Other sections that the applicant have completed is the program income. They talk about the program start and end date. It actually gives you their operational hours. So in this section, it's still under program design. It talks about those hours of operation. The next section, it goes to their total hours per week. And then the needs assessment. So this is the content that is not scored under the needs assessment. There are 3 sections that they'll complete. One regarding reading, one regarding math, and also their economically disadvantaged status. Okay, now the other part of the application is the planning tool, where it talks about all of the grant requirements, and that's the section where you will review and score for each prompt. So, and this is what the application looks like. You'll see the actual description in the prompt where the applicant is required to meet these requirements. So in the content of the information in their response should address all of those indicators. So here it's sections prompts 1 through 19, as Charmaine previously stated. The first part is the program design, prompts 1 through 7, and program components are prompts 8 through 19. So I go down to prompt 19, and as you see, some will be not applicable because prompt 19 is actually for option 3 grant. So it's not, I'm sorry, option 1. Prompt 19 is for option 1 grant. Okay, after the scored prompts, you will also see additional narrative in regard to other grant requirements, such as the food program, and as Charmaine mentioned earlier, the partnership agreement that's required with all 21st century programs. If you're an LEA, which is a district educational service center, or a charter school, you must partner with a community-based organization. So in colleges and universities, as Charmaine said earlier, are considered community-based organizations. For each applicant, they must provide at least one site. They must have operations at one site. But each applicant can also elect to have up to 3 sites. For this particular applicant, you only see one site, and it's required of one site. Also, the final piece of the application is the equitable services component, where the applicant must provide notification to the non-public school of their notification that they are applying for the grant. You may not see any of the uploaded documents due to the school closure due to the pandemic. So this will be something that the administrative office will handle once the award notifications go out in August. So if there aren't any questions on this, I think I am done. Charmaine, is there anything else you wish for me to review?
Yes. Do you have access to the grant score inbox by chance?
Let me check. I don't want to say no, and I do, because I think I do.
You go down. Yeah, you do. No. Go in the blue area under the address book.
Yeah, that's the adjustment for the district.
No,
I
no, no,
have.
no, 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 no. Go down one more.
Uh-huh.
It says
Oh,
grade score
thank
inbox. There you
you.
go.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So quickly, and Nina is unable to see anything because there's no assignments. But just while we're in the CCIP, really quickly, so we're gonna again walk through. She guided you into accessing the CCIP. So when you go in, excuse me, and you get to this section where you have CCIP home administer, if you go down, you should see grant score inbox, and this is where you will find all of your assigned applications, including your calibration read. I know there are several of you who I've been working with along with Tabitha on getting you access to the grant score roll. Please note, as of this morning, they are still working on allowing the permissions for me to approve them. So again, per my email to you, please just continue to complete your calibration as a hard copy. And once I am able to approve your access, you will then be able to go into the CCIP, and the grant score inbox will populate as an option for you to enter into accessing your application. So I just wanted to provide clarity on that. But yeah, so this is where you will access your applications. And so during the training, we'll walk you through again how to access that, because many of you who have access will be able to go in to complete your calibrations. So if there are any additional questions about what Nina just showed, please put those in the chat box. And for clarification, I am doing my best to capture all of the questions. I know Susan, you requested or you asked if they were going to be captured, and I am doing so. And I will make sure to include that in my follow-up email to you all after the training today. Thank you so much, Nina. We appreciate your help and your service to the 21st century. And again, thank you for being here and answering questions as they come up.
Okay, thanks, Charmaine.
All righty, just a few seconds here, and I'm going to pull up the training slides again. All right. Again, thank you everyone for your patience with this process. We're going to continue to move forward with the funding application. And actually, Nina, this is you as well. I had you listed here for that. All right, well, I'll go ahead and review. I'm not sure where Nina went, but that's okay. So with the funding application, you have the needs assessment. These are 3 questions in the beginning of the application which are not scored. So if you're looking for a place on your scoring rubric, you won't see it because it's not meant to be scored. That's just for your information. The planning tool, that is prompts 1 through 7. And following that are the programmatic components, which are prompts 8 through 19. Again, depending on what option you're reading, you will only, I think it's 17, 18, and 19, depending on what option you're reading, you will have to answer either all of them or one of them, one of those 3 at the end. So please be mindful, read the descriptions. It'll tell you which option you are reviewing. If there is, if it notes that you are reviewing an option and you don't have to address that within the your scoring rubric, then you will make note of that. So again, read the application to ensure that for the option that you're reviewing, that you are scoring specific prompts appropriately. The licensure and food program requirements, again, the indicators for those sections are clear. Please be sure in the RFA you are reviewing this section to ensure that the applicant is choosing the right option for licensure, as well as noting their what option for food programming that they are implementing as part of these requirements. Not having anything there is not an option. So if they put in A, then you need to make note of that. For licensure, some programs may be in process of getting that in place. They should still, at the very least, be putting in that area what their plans are with regards to licensing and their food requirements. They should have something there. Having nothing there is saying that they didn't address the prompt properly, so you need to score based on that. Grant assurances and program assurances, again, they are just agreeing to what is required of them as part of being a part of this program. So please make sure that they are noting that in their application. And the provision of equitable services, which for some is the, we mentioned in the beginning, the non-public consultation form. This is a part of that provision. This is essentially ensuring that as a federal requirement that applicants and then, those that become grantees are properly consulting any non-public entities within a reasonable proximity. So within this section, applicants need to clearly define who within their district they are working with to ensure that this provision is executed properly, and that they check the box notating that they will or have completed this requirement. So again, you need to make note if they do not provide any information here, they have to check the box, because that was they had to do that in order to submit the application. But in that narrative section, they need to make note that they are what their plan is as far as executing this provision. If there are any questions about that, please let us know. All righty, so now we are into the section where we are going to start going into reader expectations. And so with perspectives for reviewing competitive grants, we're going to get started here with Dr. Bill Lodeman, who Shannon mentioned earlier is our independent contractor. He's been with us for several years now. I believe it's been 8 or 9 years that he's been doing this process with us. It makes our process unique, where we are using data from these reads, which is very important to determine who is being awarded. And so he is the expert in this area when it comes to this piece. So we're going to allow Dr. Lodeman to begin that process. So take it away. Dr. Lodeman, are you there? Dr. Lodeman, I have taken you off of mute. Alrighty, so moving on or back to the perspectives of reviewing competitive grants. So this is going into grant reviewer expectations. Dr. Bill Lodeman, who is our independent contractor, will be leading this piece. And so, Dr. Lodeman, it is your time and you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Charmaine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, we're good to go. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. Sorry for the confusion. Just as a quick piece of information for the audience, because of the COVID-19 virus, we were all in different locations, primarily our homes. So none of us are face-to-face, so we are having the appropriate social distance from each other. And let's see if we can begin with perspectives here. For those of you who have heard this before, you can check me for reliability. We have several new readers, and so we want to make sure that everybody gets on the same page of the hymnal. Charmaine said that I worked with 21st Century for about 10 years. Actually, I've been doing this with the department at ODE for more than 25 years. I started when I was 11. Need for consistency and fairness. Your job as a reader is to provide the best professional review that you can, and we want that to be both consistent and as fair as possible. We will check you for consistency using the calibration application that you score, as well as each of the applications that you subsequently read. As Charmaine and Nina have indicated, there are 3 options. There are a total of about almost 200 applications to be read. And, excuse me, and you will be reading, for the most part, one of those options. A small subset of you as readers will read in option 1, and then you'll be assigned to option 2 or 3, but not both. So you should only be, for most of you, you'll be reading just one option. We have learned through this process that if we do A, this training, B, have you read and score a calibration application, and then check for discrepancies, we do get consistency, and we hope and pray that this is as fair as possible to give each applicant a fair opportunity to receive funding. Reader training and proposal selection. The reader training is happening today. The proposal selection will occur based on the scores that you assign to the proposals that you read. And that will be all that will be used in the allocation of funds to winning awardees. Ethics. We ask that you use your best sense of professional ethics as you read and score this application. Now, what does that mean? Well, the first thing it means is that you give each application a complete and fair read, not just reading the first sentence in each paragraph and moving on. Secondly, we ask you to put yourself in the perspective of the applicant as you read and score these applications. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you happen to live in a rural area and you use that context to score an applicant from an urban area, that's not going to fit real well. Conversely, if you're in a urban area and the applicant is from a rural area, you have to put yourself in the context of the rural area as you read and score these applications. We also ask that you use your best sense of professional ethics and judgment as you read and score these applications. Now, what does that mean? Well, the applicant is going to provide a context and a perspective that they bring to this. Your perspective may not agree with that. But again, if that's a reasonable perspective that they're bringing in, you have to consider that as you read and score. Next slide, please.
And for those that are following along on the PowerPoint slides, we're on slide 21 now. Thank you.
Content validity of the instrument. The way the scoring rubric has been developed is that we went to the RFA, we looked at what is being asked of the applicant, and we built the items based on that RFA. So there's a one-to-one correspondence between the things being asked for on the scoring rubric and the things that we're asking the applicant to provide in their application. Because there is this one-to-one correspondence, it automatically builds in something called content validity. Feedback. We ask that you provide consistent, concise, and meaningful feedback on each item on the scoring rubric. In fact, you cannot save your scores unless you have feedback provided to each respective item on the scoring rubric. And you don't have to write a tome for each of these items. A simple sentence. Make it clear, make it concise, and have it based on the facts and the perspectives provided in the application that you're scoring, and not outside that. Capacity building and learning. As you read and score these applications, you develop capacity, and your understanding of the applications will grow. Also, the applicants, as a result of putting these applications together and submitting them, they also develop some capacity and learning. And that helps future applications as they are then submitted. Your feedback also helps shape that next application that these people may be developing. Shared meaning and understanding. What we're about this morning in the early afternoon is to develop some shared meaning and understanding of what the Department of Education is looking for, as well as what you're going to be looking for in reading and scoring these applications. And we want everybody to get to the same page of the hymnal. And if I can use this analogy, maybe everybody will be singing the same words. And if we really push the analogy, hopefully everybody will be singing in tune. Next slide. We want you to draw upon your grant review expertise. Some of you have been with us for several years in doing this, and you have been invited back because of your skill in reading and scoring applications. Those of you who are new, have some grant reading perspective, we want you to bring that expertise to this reading process. The evaluations that subsequently come out of this are based on the criteria and the scores that you give the scoring rubric. Objective assessments of assigned applications are what we are looking for. The scores and the comments you provide are going to be used to determine the funding for each of these applications. Unfortunately, we don't have enough money to provide support for all applications. Next slide, please. We encourage you to read the application in its entirety before you try to score. The reason for that is that not all applicants put all information in the section that you're reading. They've learned that because there are character limitations on each section, if they have additional information that exceeds the character limitation, they sometimes put it in other sections. So read the entire application before you try to score. And then we ask you to follow instructions that are being provided to you. You can only review and consider information that is contained in the applications. Don't try to think about things outside what they say to score. And you're going to provide a numerical score for each of the either 17, 18, or 19 prompts, depending upon which option you read. And that numerical score is on a 6-point scale from 0 to 5, where 5 is the best thing since sliced bread, 0 is the worst thing since square wheels, and all shades of gray in between. We want you to provide constructive comments with suggestions for improvements. Provide summaries of strengths and weaknesses. But please remember to be politically correct. And don't just say this is a good application or a weak application or a weak response. Tell them why it's a strong response, or tell them why it's a weak response. Treat all applications in a fair and equitable manner. That goes without saying, but just want to remind you of that. Next slide, please. Your score should coincide with the rating guidelines. There's the 6-point scale, 0 to 5, where the 0 represents no evidence or minimal support. Weak is a 1 with limited information. 2 is there's some information, but it's not overly convincing. 3, there's moderate information, and you can see how the scale increases to a 4, where the information is somewhat persuasive, and 5, it's clear and convincing. It's exemplary. And we would expect that as you read and score, the score that you allocate to a particular prompt corresponds to the comment you make. So if you're going to say there's no information, and then you say they provided this information, there's some inconsistency there. So please be careful that your comments correspond to the rating you assign. Next slide. Again, there are 19 prompts. For option 1, you're going to score all 19. For option 2, you're going to score, I think it is 17. And for option 3, it is 18. You'll see that as you get into the actual scoring. And we want you to use that 6-point scale. And we ask you to please read carefully as you read and score. Thank you. Next slide. Scores to be consistent with comments. Obvious. Comments should praise strengths while critiquing weaknesses. Please be specific. If no weaknesses, please state that as a response, it's based on your score. Comment must be based on the FY21 scoring rubric. Refer to FY21 Grant Reader Guide for your assistance. Thank you. Next slide. Characteristics of high-quality comments. They're objective. They're specific to the prompt, whether they're met or not met. They're analytical. They're written in complete sentences. They're limited to information provided in the information, not outside that information. They're courteous, professional, and understandable. And make sure you check for spelling, because there's nothing more how shall I say this, offensive to the applicant when your spelling is, or your comments don't correspond to your scores, or you have spelling errors. They think you're not being professional. Next slide. Too little documentation. This is an example of low quality. Yes, it's good. It's repetitive. That is, you're making the same comment for each of the prompts. Not clearly related to the selection criteria. It's inconsistent with assigned scores. It's inaccurate based on information and application. The spelling or grammatical errors. Judgments outside the scope of reader responsibility. Next slide. Examples of acceptable comments. The applicant describes their strategies to ensure student improvement. For example, they do A, B, C. A weakness. The applicant's needs assessment demonstrates a great need, but has limited or non-useful information on how to deal with identified needs. So, under sustainability. Strength. The applicant provides a clear and convincing sustainability plan, which included elements for long-term success after funds have been exhausted. For example, they used Title I, they used local funds, they used other sources of funding. A weakness. The applicant has not listed evidence or other federal, state, or local program funding, as well as the actual use of any in-kind contributions. Next slide. Timing. We're going through the training today. In a little while, you're going to have the opportunity to read and score a calibration application. And after you've done that reading and scoring and submitted it through the CCIP, you're going to be assigned a subset of applications to read. You're not going to get any assigned applications until you have submitted the calibration application scores in the CCIP. You're going to have about a 2-week reading window to read and score the applications. You're likely to receive about 7 or 8 applications to read and score over the 2-week period. Following that, you're going to have a 1-week window to resolve potential discrepancies. You won't know there's discrepancies because you won't initially see the scores from the other people reading the applications. There will probably be 3 or 4 readers assigned to a particular application, and you won't know who the other readers are. The folks at ODE will then check your scores as you submit them, and check for discrepancies. If there are discrepancies, we're going to ask you to resolve those, and we'll talk about that here momentarily. Following that, once the final data set is complete, I will get a blinded set of scores. It will have your reader number, it will have your application number, and it will have the scores you assigned to items 1 through potentially 19. I will take those blinded scores and then run a process called facets, which will simultaneously calibrate the scoring rubric and determine its reliability. It will then determine your precision or lack of precision as a reader, and it will then calibrate the scores on each application and give us a list of applications ranked from high to low in terms of their quality score as determined by you as readers. We ask you to be prompt as you read and score. That is, a natural tendency is to not do the scoring once you get the application, but to put that off. And if that happens, we're going to prompt you to either get some scores put in, or we're going to remove those applications from you and reassign them to someone else. Further, if you discover a potential conflict of interest in an application you are assigned, please contact the folks at ODE. They will talk about whether or not they think this is a conflict of interest. If they think it is, and you think it is, they will assign you another proposal to read, and they will assign the one you have with which you have a conflict of interest to someone else. You must use the CCIP to read and score the applications, and we're going to give you some training on that here momentarily. Next slide, please. There are going to be at least 3 readers per proposal. Some proposals will have 4. These are going to be what are called independent reads. The likelihood of these not being independent reads is very slim because this is all done electronically, and you won't know who the other 2 or 3 readers are on your application until you try to resolve discrepancies. So these are going to be independent reads as you read and score. Resolving discrepancies. By the way, on independent readers, if you do happen to know who else is reading a particular application, and you say, how did you score item 1? That's not an independent read. Now, resolving discrepancies. After you submit your scores through the CCIP, the staff at ODE will then look at those scores application by application and determine if there's more than a 2-point difference on any item on a given application. If there are those discrepancies, we're going to ask you to resolve those discrepancies with the other 2 or 3 readers who have read that particular application. And the first level of that will be to try to do it using email. If that doesn't work, then we will go to a conference call perspective. And for the most part, it's not going to be that difficult to resolve discrepancies if you follow the scoring rubric and those points on there that are assigned. So if 3 of us are reading a proposal and I give it a score of 2 and you give it a score of 4 and the other reader gives it a score of 5, we're more than 2 points apart. So what we ask you to do is to have this email conversation and decide on a given item that I could change my score from a 2 to a 3. You could change your score from a 5 to a 4, or both, and we would be within 2 points of each other. We're asking you to do that, and you're probably not going to find a lot of discrepancies if you pay attention to the scoring process. Next slide, please. Leniency, severity of readers. Each of us comes to this situation with our own background, our own education, and our own sense of leniency, severity. Being a lenient reader or a more severe reader is not a problem in general. It is a problem if you are overly lenient or overly severe, and if that is the case, we do reserve the right not to use your scores. But in the time that I've been doing this process, we've probably thrown out 10 or fewer people for being overly lenient or overly severe or inconsistent. Now, I happen to be a pretty severe reader. So unless you adjust for leniency and severity, you would not want your application read by 3 people like me. Conversely, some people are lenient readers, and you would like your application read by 3 lenient readers. So what this process ultimately does is determine the leniency severity of each of you as readers. So if you're a severe reader, it will take your scores and adjust them up a little bit. If you're a lenient reader, it'll take your scores and adjust them down a little bit. Now, the program is good, but it doesn't work miracles. So if you are way out on this scale of either leniency, severity, we do reserve the right not to use your score. In technical terms, you're a wacko. Idiosyncratic perspective of readers. Each of us comes to this situation with our own history, our own experiences, our own education. We're looking for your unique perspectives as a reader as you read and score these applications. If we only wanted one perspective, we'd only have or need one reader. We want at least 3 perspectives, and people who are reading these are coming from professional positions, but they're not all the same professional positions. So we're looking for those different perspectives as they read and score. Length of the applications. The length of the applications is constrained in that the number of characters in any section is limited to 4,000 characters for the applicant for each section. Therefore, you're not going to be reading a 300-page application. They're constrained. By virtue of that constraining, however, it creates a challenge for the applicants to be as concise and precise as possible as they enter their information. And that's why I made the comment before, because there's a limit to it, how many characters are in a section. They may put some information in other sections of the proposal where they have unused characters. So read the entire application. But the length of the application is constrained, so you won't be reading these enormous proposals. They're limited. Next slide, please. Disclosure, conflict of interest. We've already asked you if you have a potential conflict of interest with any applicant, depending upon where you live. If you think you have a conflict of interest, you probably do. For example, if you have a financial obligation to a particular entity that's submitting the application, pretty sure that's conflict of interest. If your spouse is submitting an application, pretty sure that's going to be a conflict of interest for you. So we've already asked you that, and we'll try not to assign you an application where there's an obvious conflict of interest up front. But you may be assigned an application where the conflict of interest isn't obvious to the folks at ODE. So we ask that once you are assigned those applications, we ask you to do a quick review of who the applicant is on each of those and identify any potential conflict of interest with any of those applicants. If you do, contact ODE. They will remove that application from you and assign you another one to read. So you're not going to be losing a read by identifying a conflict of interest. And there's a third level of check here, and that is every once in a while we get a reader who is, in my terms, aberrant. That is, their scores are out of line with the other readers. And one of the things that may happen there is that their scores seem to be either favoring or disfavoring a particular applicant. If we find that the case, we're going to remove you as a reader from that application. Again, that's not likely to happen. It would be rare that would happen, but we do maintain the ability to eliminate readers for cause. It's just a announcement that says we have the capacity to do that. We're not going to do it capriciously, and as I said, the removal of a reader is extremely rare. Next slide, please. Making judgments. There are either 17, 18, or 19 items, depending upon which option you read, and we're going to be asking you to make a professional judgment on each of those 17 to 19 items. So you're going to make 17, 18, or 19 judgments for each application, and that judgment is hopefully made on your best professional knowledge and skill. And that's going to be the score that you assign to that particular application item. So if you think something is pretty well done, give it a higher score. If you think something is not done very well, give it a lower score. Again, we want you to be able to justify with your comments why you gave it that particular score. And we ask you to stay away from what is called flatlining. So if I look at the profile of your scores, I would expect to see some degree of variation across your scores. Every once in a while, there's a rare application that's extremely high on all items, or extremely low on all items, or extremely in the middle of the road. But generally, there's some fluctuation across the 19 or 18 or 17 items, and you see a pattern. Now, I don't expect to see that pattern to go from 0, 5, 0, 5, 0, 5, but I do expect to see some variability in there. So if you look at your profile of scores on a given application and it's very flatline, you're probably not being discriminating enough. And we're going to be asking you to make those discriminations. We're asking you to use your best professional judgment as you read and score these applications. And recognize finally this: the awards are going to be based on the quality of the application. That quality is going to be determined directly from the scores that you provide to the applications. Now, those raw scores will be adjusted by the program to adjust for leniency severity of the readers and adjust for the ease or difficulty of endorsing a particular item. Next slide, please. Scoring rubrics. We're going to ask that you read and review the scoring rubrics. You can see the timeline coming in here. The CCIP closed applications on May 29. Starting today, And going through June 29th, we're going to have the scoring completed. We'll then take that week to resolve any discrepancies. And following that, we will do the scoring. And following that, the department will generate the list of awardees. The awardees will be according to each respective option, and a subset of applications will be awarded in each respective option. Next slide, please. The CCIP procedures. This is all going to be done electronically. Hopefully, it won't be as bumpy as today. The CCIP has been in place for a significantly long period of time. Most of the bugs, hopefully all the bugs have been worked out of it, and the applications are scored in the CCIP. You must have a comment for each prompt. If you don't have a comment for a given prompt, the program's going to prompt you when you try to save and say, whoop, hold on here. You haven't completed the application, and you will be notified by ODE if a discrepancy needs to be resolved. Next slide. As I indicated, discrepancy will try to be first resolved by email. Unresolved discrepancy will result in a conference call on July 14th as needed. During the call, all three readers will discuss their findings and explain and defend their scores. So if I gave it a 2, I should be able to defend why I gave it a 2. If I gave it a 4, I should be able to defend why I gave it a 4. If I gave it a 5, I should be able to defend that. If I gave it a 6, there's a problem, because 6 is an legitimate score on the scoring rubric. Based on the discussion, readers may reduce separation of scores to 2 points or less. Selected readers will enter revised scores into the CCIP no later than July 8th of this year. Now, some of you won't have to resolve any discrepancies. A few of you will. Hopefully, it'll be a minimum number of discrepancies to resolve and a minimum number of people. Next slide, please.
Dr. Lohman, I think that's the end of your slides. I think you may be picking up a little bit later, but thank you, Dr. Lohman, for going through the first part of the reader expectations. Before we move on, I just wanted to reiterate the importance of eliminating discrepancies. It is imperative that you work directly with the team of readers within that discrepancy email that you may receive. For example, it should be 3 of you on the email that comes to you, and you are asked to resolve those discrepancies as soon as possible because of our timeline to award new applicants. That time frame will be between June 29th through 30th is when you will start to get those emails. And depending on the number of discrepancies you need to resolve, you are going to receive more than one email. So just FYI, that day or two, you're going to get at least one email if you have discrepancies. Please work directly with the readers. Take ODE off of the email. Work directly with the group of readers, and then come back with your update as to when the discrepancies are resolved via CCIP. Again, if there are any questions, let us know about that, but we will go through that in a little bit later on in the presentation. Again, thank you, Dr. Lohman, and we will be back with you in a little bit. Okay, so moving forward with the scoring process, again, we discussed what needs to take place and what you need access to in order to complete this process. So we're looking at the CCIP, which is our online application system. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Access to the CCIP comes through your OHID account, which you all should have at this point. And then working within the CCIP, that would be how you would access your scoring rubric and the assigned applications that you will be reviewing. Okay, so for those that are new to Ohio, the CCIP stands for the Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan. That's why we shorten it for CCIP. That's a lot to say, but that's what it means. The CCIP is a unified grant application and verification system. A specialized application has been added to the CCIP to facilitate the scoring of 21st century applications. And so we're going to actually walk through how you will access your applications via the CCIP. So we're going to do it through slide form, and then again, if you have questions, let us know. Okay, so again, most of you or all of you should already have an account. So the website to get to your OHID here is ohid.ohio.gov. You would then enter in your username and password. If for some reason you still need to create an account, there's the option to do so on the left side of that page. If you cannot access your account and need to find your username and password, there's the option to do that there as well. So this is how you access your OHID account, which houses all of your system applications, which includes the CCIP. Next, once you log into your OHID account, you want to go to your applications. And this is the view from my screen. So yours may look a little different, but essentially you should have access to your applications. And from there, you would then click on the CCIP application. So to access scoring within the OHID, users can choose from systems in which you have approved access. So again, there are still some of you, unfortunately, due to internal systems access, do not have the CCIP showing up on your screen yet. And so first, let me say, if you haven't already, I would encourage you to walk through this process with me on your own computer if you can. But if you can't, again, just know that we are working internally to get you access to the CCIP as well as the grant score role, because that's what you need to access your applications. And so you should, on your applications page, see the CCIP as an application. Once you have your OHID account, you should then make sure that you have it. Access to CCIP is granted and approved to contracted scorers as requests as they are received. And again, we know that many of you do not have access yet, but we are working on that. And again, as I stated in the email to those yesterday, we are still working on that, but as soon as I get an update before end of business today, I will make sure to give you that information directly. So once you are in, so let's go back. Once you log into your OHID account, you click on the CCIP. Then you are going to log in to check your inbox for assignments. You should have, at the very least, your calibration application, which should be application 156, 157, and or 158. So if you go to the left-hand side of the screen, you should see grant score inbox listed here in the blue section. And that's what you want to click on to access your applications. Okay, so if you get in and you see nothing, it may be because you're not in the right fiscal year. It says FY 2014, but you're really looking for fiscal year 2021. So as you're getting into the system, please make sure. Okay, someone is saying that slides are not showing. We are on slide 44. So if you have your slides that were sent to you, we are on slide 44. Find applications in inbox. That's where we are. So as you're into your grant score inbox, please click on fiscal year 2021. And once you get to that fiscal year, all of your funding applications should populate. This is an example of straight A, but you're looking for 21st century here. As well, you will then be able to click here for access to the application that you will be reviewing. In this case, many of you see your calibration. You would click on that 156, 157, or 158. And then you will click on the application to open. Once you click on your application, it's important to note that you need to ensure that there's no conflict of interest, and you need to mark that you will agree to complete. It will let you know if you have completed your scoring, and then the rubric score count. It says here 14 out of 14, but for your applications this year, the rubric score count should be at 19 out of 19. So for those of you who are looking to complete your calibration after the training, make sure that that rubric score count is at 19 out of 19, because that's what our team's going to be looking for. Ludia Durillian, who is our grants manager, will be responsible for assigning your assigned reads. She needs to see that your rubric score count is at 19 out of 19. That would help her to know, well, they're done with their calibration. So then she's going to assign you your reads. So please make sure that it is at 19 out of 19. If there is, again, a conflict of interest, please mark yes, email me directly, and we will work to reassign your application. Reading the application. So there is within each application a fiscal and programmatic component. So you will first look in the application at the budget, which you should be seeing as the first part of the application, and then the rest of the application is the narrative or the programmatic information. You have the ability to read them online, or if you're so inclined, you can print out a copy for yourself. I myself, as a reader, know, for me, I like to have a hard copy in hand because that's how I write my notes to help me with my comments and scores. Depending on how large the application is, that will determine if I print it out or if I keep it as electronic copy. So it's really up to you, but you have that option. Okay, moving on to scoring. We are now on slide 47 for those that are having difficulty seeing the screen. Each question requires a score and an explanation. So when you log in, you will see the scoring rubric, and this will be within each application that you are assigned. Again, remember, if you need to review the application that you are scoring, there's a link up here where it says View Application for Scoring. Then in the scoring rubric, you will have listed your scoring rubric question number. The scoring rubric text should be here. You will then go down to score either 0 through 5. And then your reason for your score. Again, your score should align with, your comments should align with your score. Again, your comments should be in your strengths and weaknesses. You need to, as we previously stated, it needs to be enough information to give the reader an idea of what they did right, with examples of that, and what they did wrong within, as if it's a weakness, you need to note what exactly was the weakness. And again, that would help to certify the score that you provided them. I put the slide here again because, as a reminder, and this is a new component for those that have been with us before, we are giving you, and as part of your supplemental documents, we gave you a copy of the scoring guidelines so that you know exactly what you should be scoring for within each application. It should be 0 for no evidence, 1 for limited or weak evidence, which gives you a description for each one. 2 is some evidence. 3, moderate evidence. 4, persuasive. And 5, clear and convincing. Now, if you give someone a 5, that means there are no weaknesses. So that would be like saying you give them their strengths within their comments, and then as a weakness, you would say there appears to be no weaknesses for this indicator or this prompt. That way, the reader knows that for their 5, the 5 that you gave them, that there was no weaknesses identified. That means it was a good response. Anything less than a 5, you need to provide a weakness. This is a part of your supplemental documents. I would print this off or hold this as part of your reads to reference during this process. That way you know exactly how you should be scoring per prompt within each application. Okay, so again, each prompt should receive a score and corresponding comment that aligns with specific guidelines listed. So this is an example of prompt 2, which for ODE is the performance measure objective 1. This is what they should be addressing within their response. Describe how you would ensure 100% of your program sites will deliver enrichment opportunities in reading that use evidence-based strategies and practices with at least 2 hours of reading enrichment provided per week. And again, you were given the the scoring guidelines, so you know exactly how you should be scoring per application prompt. Required documentation. As previously stated, due to COVID, many of our applicants may or may not have the signed partnership agreement and non-public consultation forms attached, but they should be noting their partnership, their primary partnership within the application, as well as the equitable services provision. They should have language in that prompt as far as who would be responsible for the provision and who they plan on contacting. The documents, if they are not there, will be required upon award notification if they are awarded. Okay, so I saw in the chat box who was saying that about the save. Oh, Nanette, thank you. She mentioned making sure to save your response before time expires. So thank you for that. So in the past, you've had up to an hour to go in and do your work, but as of within the last year or two, that has now changed. So you only have 30 minutes at a time. So it is important to save your work. And this is how you do it. So you're in your grant score inbox, you're reviewing an application within the scoring rubric. You get down to the bottom, you're clicking that you have completed if you are completing your application, you click yes. If no, you click no. So before you stop anything, like if you're going through and you get halfway and you're like, oh, I need to step away for a second, you need to click no and then click save. That way the system knows that you are not done with this application. For your calibrations, we will do our best to get you at least partially done. So once you complete as much as you can during the training today, you're going to click no for scoring complete and then click save. That way after the training, you can go back in and complete your calibration. If you are done, click yes and then save. But saving is important. So to track your progress, information in the score inbox updates as you save. So as you note, as you are saving your applications, you'll notice in your inbox where you are. So if you complete an application, it should be 19 out of 19. If it's not, it'll tell you what prompt you stopped at. So if you didn't start it or you started one prompt, it'll say 1 out of 19. When the application has been completely scored and saved, this column here will say true. If you haven't completed it, it's going to say false. That'll be another indicator that you have completed or not completed an application. Please continue your work through the inbox until all of your assigned reads are completed. That is the goal. Okay, so scoring process involves a number of things. It is your assignment of your assigned reads, your assigned applications, scoring assignments, and confidentiality. I'm actually going to have Dr. Lohman step in here to continue this conversation, and there are a couple slides. We're going to actually go into the calibration read here shortly. Dr. Lohman, it's 12:30, so my recommendation is that we give our readers 30 minutes, and there's prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8 that we can have them read to provide their comments and scores. Just for the sake of time, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that before I give the floor back to you.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Lohman is going to take it away from here.
Okay. The proposals that you actually receive to score are going to be assigned randomly, given that you have no potential conflict of interest. You will be assigned somewhere between 7 and 8 as an initial read. If in fact you find that you cannot meet this obligation, please contact Charmaine at your earliest possible convenience, and she will reassign those applications to someone else. Now, I recognize that there are problems in life, like you may get sick, you may have an accident, you may deliver a baby or whatever, and you cannot complete the assignment. Contact Charmaine. She'll take those applications and assign them to somebody else. The scoring assignments are attempted to be made in ways that obviate potential conflicts of interest, but we can't find them all, and some of them are things that you wouldn't recognize as a potential conflict of interest from our end. Confidentiality. We are asking you to do this in a confidential fashion. The information you read is confidential, and it will remain confidential until these awards become public. So a couple pieces of information relative to confidentiality. First, if a reader asks for scores, you will not be identified by name but by reader number, and your scores and comments will be provided to the applicant. Secondly, the documents that you read are confidential. There may be proprietary information in there, like salaries. So please treat that with the utmost confidentiality. The applications themselves will become public information once the awards are made. So just be aware of what's going on. Thank you, and be professional as you move forward. Next slide. We're going to ask you to read the scoring rubric. Then we're going to ask you to, if you have any questions on the scoring rubric, and use questions in the toolbox or chat box to communicate. And this is a message to Charmaine. I am not seeing the comments in the chat box, so I won't be able to respond to those if they do have questions. So take the next couple minutes to review the scoring rubric.
In the scoring rubric, I gave you all a copy of that in the invitation email you received, in case there are some folks that are still unable to access the CCIP at this time. But if you are in your grant score inbox, please review the scoring rubric at this time. Dr. Lohman, for the sake of time, I think we need to go ahead and continue the presentation.
Okay. If folks have questions, they can put them in the chat box, and we will try to respond to those.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next slide here.
Dr. Lohman, I'll inform you of any questions that come regarding the rubric or the calibration.
All right. This is the allocation of options. So for option 1, you should be reading calibration application number 156. If you're assigned to read option 2, you should be reading calibration application 157. And if you're assigned to option 3, you should be reading calibration application 158. We're going to have a little group discussion after you've had a chance to read these applications. And here's the point here. It's now about 25 to 1. You can probably read the application in about 20 minutes or so, depending upon how fast you read. Once you do that, then start scoring the application using the CCIP. Once that begins to happen, you can go as far and as fast as you can by going through the CCIP. Remember to save periodically, and we'll be back with you briefly in, let's say it's now 1:32. We'll touch base with you again at 1 o'clock and see how you're doing, but please begin the reading of the application you've been assigned using the CCIP. Next slide here, Charmaine.
Dr. Lohman, thank you. I need to clarify. So right now, it's 12:35 Eastern Standard Time, 9:35 Pacific. You have until 1 o'clock to review the calibration that you were assigned. You're only reviewing prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8 for the sake of time. You will have, after the training, to complete the rest of the calibration. Please click no after you're done with those 4 prompts so that the system knows that you still need to go back in to finish the calibration, and then you're saving your calibration comments and scores. For those that still do not have CCIP access, please just review the calibration copy that you received in your emails, making note of your comments and scores for each option. And then once you get access, we're working on that for today. I will prompt you to then go into the CCIP to enter in the comments and scores that you have done in advance. So that's just for clarification. Right now, you are going into the CCIP, into your grant score inbox, to one of the 3 options listed to complete your calibration for prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8. When we return, we will ask you to then put your put your scores in per option. And then we'll ask some of you to provide examples of your comments. So I just wanted to clarify that in case there were questions. I'm sorry, Dr. Lohman, please proceed. We're on now slide 56 with the starting the polling question. So we're taking a break right now.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So again, you guys, we're going to allow you time. Right now you have 25 minutes to read again prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8 of your calibration read. If you
Charmaine,
are,
please have them read the entire application before they try to score.
Okay,
They're going to be scoring 4 prompts, but read the entire application.
Okay, so yes, so to clarify, you are reviewing the entire application, but you're only scoring prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8. If you are assigned option 1 and 2, please choose one of those calibrations to start with this training. For those that aren't in the CCIP, again, you are just reading your hard copy and making note of your scores and comments. And if you can participate by typing in that information when prompted, that will be greatly appreciated. And just hold on to that information again until we give you access after the training. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat box. But for right now, we're going to mute ourselves until 1 o'clock. Again, you're reading the entire application and then scoring 1, 2, 6, and 8. The prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8. Thank you. All righty, one more minute. All right, it is now 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Dr. Lohman, we are ready to return whenever you are. Oh, I think I. Dr. Lohman, can you hear me? Dr. Lohman, are you with us? Oh, okay.
Okay, we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, folks, I'm sure you haven't finished scoring, but you hopefully have finished reading the application and scored the prompts we asked about. So this is how we're going to proceed. I'm going to ask the folks who read option 2, that is calibration application 157, only to respond now. For those folks who read option 1 or option 3, just hold on for a minute. So if you've read option 2, I'm asking you to provide your scores in the chat box to prompt number 1. And Charmaine, I can't see those, so you're gonna have to help me out here.
3 3 3 4 2 3 4 2 3 3 4 3 3 2.
Okay.
So it looks
that
like
looks
yeah.
like it's that looks like it's pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
If I heard 2s, 3s, and 4s, I didn't hear anything outside of that range.
There's a 1 that just came through, but that's the only one.
Okay. So if we had a 1 and a 4, that's a discrepancy that we would have to resolve on that particular item. Otherwise, it looks like you folks are pretty consistent. All right, let's try prompt number 2, which let's move the slide to prompt number 2, Charmaine.
Okay.
This is, again, only for option 2. Please provide your scores in the chat box for option 2.
4 4 5 4 4 4 4 4 3 3 4 3 4 3 4.
Okay.
So there are a couple of 5s and then mostly 3s and 4s.
Yeah, we're consistent on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is trying to help you as readers to calibrate, just seeing how other people scored. So again, with no more than 2-point discrepancy, we wouldn't have to resolve any discrepancies on this item. Let's move to prompt 3.
I'm sorry, you mean option
5,
3?
I'm sorry. It's prompt 5. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Prompt 5. Here, what we want to do is, again, refer to the option 2 readers and have them provide their scores in the chat box.
And this is from the application 157 that he's talking about. Option 2 is application 157. So I see 5 4 4 5 3 4 4 2 5 4 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we're pretty consistent on that one. There's a 2 and a 5. So if that were the situation, that's a discrepancy that would have to be resolved. And again, what we're trying to do is to help you as readers to get calibrated. All right, sure. Let's move to the next prompt. This is prompt 6. So we're asking the option 2 readers, that is calibration application 157, to provide your scores for prompt 6 in the chat box.
Okay, 3 4 3 5 3 4 3345544.
Perfect. Okay. Again, pretty consistent there.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have to resolve any discrepancies there. All right. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, Charmaine,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, is to move back to 4 slides to prompt 1. And now I'm going to talk to the people who have read option 3.
So this is
Which is
for those that, I'm sorry, and I think that, let me clarify, I said prompts 1, 2, 6, and 8, and I think I gave the wrong numbers, which it's okay. It's actually prompt 1, 2, 5, and 6, and I apologize. So if you didn't read some of the prompts, that's fine. Just provide scores for what you do have. And I, again, apologize. Janet, I see your response. I did say 6 and 8, and I misread the numbers. So whatever you did prepare, that's what you're going to be providing. If you didn't read something that pops up, I apologize for the error. Okay,
All
sorry.
right.
So now we're reading for those that read option 3, application 158. Thank you, Dr. Loman. Go ahead.
We forgive you, Charmaine. You're doing a good job managing this.
Thank you.
All right. For those folks who read option 3, what I want you to do in the chat box is to put your score in for prompt number 1.
Uh, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 2, 3, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 3.
Okay,
3.
We're pretty consistent there. Again, nothing there that would be out of line, so we wouldn't have to resolve any discrepancies there. Let's move on to the next prompt. So let's go to, I think it's prompt 2. Am I right? On the next slide.
Sorry, I had a question in the chat box.
Okay.
It's prompt 2 for option 3.
Yep.
Okay,
Prompt 2.
4, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a 5 and a 2.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, we'd have to resolve that discrepancy. But remember, what we're trying to do here is help you get calibrated as a reader. So we've gone to prompt 2. We're pretty consistent. Let's move to the next prompt here, Charmaine. This is prompt number 5. So for option 3 readers, put your score in the chat box for prompt number 5.
Okay. 3, 3, 5, 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 3. 4, 5.
Okay.
4.
Again, we're pretty consistent. We don't have more than a 2-point discrepancy,
Mm-hmm.
so we would not have to resolve discrepancies. And again, remember, what we're trying to do is help you get calibrated as a reader. Let's go to the next prompt.
Okay. Prompt 6 for option 3.
Prompt 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Please enter your scores in the chat box.
5, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 3, 2, 5, 2, 4, 4, 2, 3, 3, 5, 3, 2. This one is kind of old. 3.
All right. We have a little more. We have a little more variability in this one.
Mm-hmm.
There's several 2s and several 5s. So in that case, we'd be resolving discrepancies. And again, I'm just trying to remind you what we're trying to do is to help you get calibrated as a reader. Okay.
Dr. Loman, before we move forward, I just wanted to ask, as a new component to the training this year, let's stick with prompt 6. If you were able to provide a comment for prompt 6, I know you still have some time after the training to complete your calibration, but if you were able to, for option 2 or 3, write a comment to justify your score for prompt 6. 1 to 2 people, could you please share your comment in the chat? And what I'm going to do is capture that for future reference to put in the notes that I'm going to send out to everyone. And then we're going to talk about it to give you feedback. So if anyone has a comment, oh, thank you, William. That was okay. William, for prompt 6 for option 3, he put strength. The applicant mentioned several evidence-based resources that point to the critical importance of the positive involvement of families in the development of a student. That's great. For the quick feedback on that, William, you try to put an example or two of what they put there. That way they know what was considered appropriate there. So that would be that. And then a weakness was the applicant did not tie their suggested activities, multiple of them, to any of the specific evidence-based strategies that were cited. So thank you for that. That was a really strong comment. Again, for the strength, I would just put an example there of what was considered appropriate. And that is again for option 3, calibration, prompt 6. Okay, and I got a couple of comments, but I'm not sure for which option, so I'm going to skip down. Okay, Laura Sullivan, you put for the prompt 6, a variety of activities are listed or described. However, a clear link to the specific students and their needs will strengthen this section. So Laura, for your comment, prompt 6 of this application for option 3, a variety of activities are listed or described. Can you go into more detail as far as that, so that the applicant understands, were the activities strong, or what was it about them listing the activities that made that a strength? What you're providing here is very kind of broad or generic, so I will try to be more specific as to that piece. William, again, in his comment, he was very specific as to what he was targeting as far as the strengths and weaknesses, with the exception of providing a few examples. So that's what I would suggest for your comment, Laura, but thank you for sharing it. I am going to list that as an example. And then I'll take one more. Dawn, you listed as strengths. The applicant clearly describes how they will monitor and track family engagement through parent sign-in sheets at each event. Let's Get Ready evaluation, a number of families signing up for cards, and the family STEM activity. The weakness she listed, the applicant would benefit by providing recruitment strategies to support the 10 parent engagement events. That is a very strong comment, Dawn, that you provided for that prompt. So thank you so much for sharing. She provided a number of examples in her strengths. And then in her weakness, she mentioned why she took off points due to what the applicant provided. So again, this is a new component. I just wanted to capture what you guys were doing and provide some feedback. So again, for after the training, I'm going to hold on to the chat documentation of the chat and capture a few more of these comments to put in what I'm going to send out as a follow-up to this training. So thank you so much again, everyone, for sharing. We're not going to move forward with any more examples because of time, but I will capture what has been shared thus far. So thank you all for that. And so as we continue to wrap up the training, and I'm going to admit that this piece I was touched by as a reviewer. I believe Arizona had captured this in their training, and I thought this is really helpful information. There are a number of you that have read for Ohio before, and so I wanted to ask you in the chat, what can you share with the group that has worked for you to be a successful grant reviewer, either in Ohio or any other states that you have read for? I think that it's important to share best practices, especially for those that have read for other states and not Ohio. Things that may work there may work here, and vice versa. And so I think it's important to share that information. And again, I'm going to capture what you put here and put that in a follow-up email to everyone once we are done for today. So again, please share what has worked for you in being a successful reader. I'll leave this open for a couple minutes, and then we'll go ahead and read out some. All right. It seems like we have several responses to this question. I appreciate everyone for sharing their best practices. I'm trying to scroll back down. Okay. Yes. So, William, I see. Do your comments in Word or Google Docs, whatever your preference is, and then paste them into the application. Again, I vouch for that as someone that has read previously, and it helps because you can save your, as far as working in the CCIP, we know that there's a timer. So at the very least, you'll have your work saved elsewhere. So that is a very great best practice to share. Monica, save after every prompt. Yes, absolutely. That way you are capturing your information, because with technology, and internet, things happen. You want to make sure that your work is being saved. Do not wait to the last minute to review and enter scoring. Number 13, that is correct. The CCIP is set to open and close at a certain time. So if you wait to the last minute to input your comments and scores, and you're right at the time that it's supposed to close, it will close, and you will not be able to finish your applications. And so we just encourage you to spread out your work. We're going to finish up with some reminders about that as well. So thank you for that. Pace yourself. Use of a scoring rubric is helpful. Yes, it is. Reading all applications first, taking notes, then individually scoring each one. And my apologies, someone is mowing their lawn outside of my house. So, but that is a good one. I'm going to capture that in our feedback section as well. So yes, you guys are doing awesome, providing us with critical best practices. Read the whole grant first. It gives you an overall picture of what the applicant is trying to accomplish, then go back and score. Thank you for that. Again, I'm trying to capture this at the same time in my Word document so I don't miss anything. Open two screens on computer so you can easily go back and forth between the rubric and the documents. Number 37, that is a great idea. That way you can work through your read consistently, but it doesn't take as long. A number of these are reiterating the importance of saving. Okay, so thank you all. And if you have a chance to read through these, I am going to stay after the training's over to capture the comments and again put them out there for everyone. Someone put, what has worked for me being a successful reader is making my responses personal to the applicant of what is provided in the grant. Also, I do not use the weakness. I say consider and add what might help them provide a stronger response. Okay, that's interesting. I will hold on to that. Okay, so for the sake of time, again, thank you all for sharing your responses. They are very helpful and in understanding how to be successful as a reviewer. And so we'll get that information over to you. Number 50, yes, please put your comments into the scoring rubric. This is helping to calibrate the system. So whatever you have written out thus far or provided as far as your score, as far as your comments and scores, you are putting those into your calibration. And then you're saving it to ensure that it is completed before you are assigned your reads. Okay, so quickly, the FY21 timeline, you also received this in your invitation emails. This details the process. We touched on this a little bit earlier with Dr. Lohman. So that actually was the 4th that you received your reader notification emails or your invitation emails. We're doing the training right now. Once you are completed your calibration read, Ludia Derillian will, you won't know she's assigned, but just know that she will be following the system to determine when you complete your calibrations. The sooner you get that in the system, the better. That way you can have your assigned reads as soon as possible. You will have from June 12th through the 29th to review. The assignments will take place between the 12th and the 15th, depending on when you complete your calibrations. The 12th through the 29th is when you will read review your assigned calibrations within the CCIP. The discrepancy process will take place via email on July 1st through the 8th. And if there is a need to have a facilitated Skype call, that will take place sometime during July 14th. We will set up some time with you and the 3 readers that you are scoring this application with to go through that process. If there are any questions about the timeline, please contact me directly and I will be happy to assist. Yes, Emma, the CCIP will be open from now until June 29th, at which time the system will close. So I will, halfway through and then towards the end, we will send out a reminder emails to make sure that you are on track with that. And the system closes, I believe, June 29th at 8 a.m. That is in the grant reader guidelines in that timeline. Okay, so grant reader assignments. Before you get assigned, again, your calibrations must be at that 19 out of 19 rubric scoring number within the CCIP. This is before you are assigned any applications. We, as the Department of Education, reserve any right to assign your applications as needed. Please be sure to input your application data no later than June 22nd. This doesn't mean you have to complete all of your reads by then. You're just starting that process. We just want to make sure that you are using your time wisely to get in your applications, because again, our system is electronic. Once that system closes, you will have to contact us for next steps. We expect, because of our timeline, that you get your reads done by June 29th. So if you can start at least with 1 or 2 of your applications, putting that into the system by June 22nd, that will be greatly appreciated. That way we can see that you are working and that you are on track to complete your reads by the June 29th deadline. Grant reader assignments. Please communicate with me, Charmaine Davis Bay, CC Tabitha Palmer, who some of you have already been in touch with, in advance. If you cannot complete 1 or more of your assigned applications, it'll allow us to assess a need, so that if you can let us know if something happens, like Dr. Lomas said, if someone, if you're having issues, something with the family comes up, or you're having internet issues and you can't complete an application in time, please let us know so that we can work with someone that is available to complete an additional read to do so. This again will make time for any reassignments ahead of the June 29th deadline. Carolyn, to answer your question again, I am still working with IT on getting access to the list of readers that I have that are still looking for access in the CCIP. Once I do so, I will email those readers directly with next steps. So I just saw that someone asked about payment. You in total will receive no more than $2,500 for reading applications. $200 will be allocated to you for attending today's training. That's why you needed to put in your reader number. And to complete your assigned calibration. And so again, for those that were able to get into the system today, I will work to assist you with that so that you can, it can be tracked in the system that you did complete your calibration read. And then for your subsequent reads, you will get $125 per application. Ohio now does not require invoicing. We pulled data from the CCIP to show which reads you have completed, and that process is done internally. So if there's a question about that, I double check. What happens is we use a spreadsheet to document what applications you are reading. Once we pull the data from CCIP working with our data team, I will then double check what reads you've completed with what the system is showing. And I will check which applications you were assigned compared to what the system is showing as you completed. Once that data is confirmed, then that will be sent to our fiscal office once it is approved by office management. And from there, you will then get paid net 30. So from 30 days after the fiscal office receives the approval of that list would be when you will get paid for your time in reading. So if there are any additional questions, please put those in chat. And then here is contact information for your reference. I am putting my phone number here. If you would like for me to contact you directly, you can leave a message. I do check my voicemail once every few days. The best way to get in touch with me is, for some of you that have already done so, send me an email and request a callback. I will then either call you from my work line, which is connected to our Skype, or I will set up a Skype call with you where we can actually see each other and we can walk through whatever it is that you need assistance with. If it's technical, programmatic though, because this is a competition, we want to ensure that the read is happening in the most ethical way possible. So we won't be able to give you as much information other than to direct you to resources to help you answer the question that you're looking for. So we will then direct you back to the RFA, to whatever section is in there, and to any subsequent documents that you may need access to. But again, we will do our best to assist you with getting clarification on a question that you may have about your read specifically. But again, because this is a competition, we want to ensure that you are the one providing the response, not us. So we will help you to determine where to find that information, but as far as the response, that is your responsibility. Technical, we can definitely help you walk through the system in the process of getting access to whatever you need on a technical level. And again, you can either call my work line there, or you can email me and request a callback, and I will do that as soon as I receive the message. Most people know I'm very quick with responding. Within no later than a business day, you will hear back from me, but I definitely will do it within an hour or two if my time allows. That is the earliest that I can provide a response. So, and then again, you can always reach out. Tabitha will be in touch with some of you about your assigned reads. She's also a good person to reach out to with questions, but any of us will be available if it relates to technical questions with the CCIP, fiscal questions. 9 of them, we would be able to assist you, and so we're just here to assist in any way that you can, that is possible. All right, so we're going out to the nitty gritty. Any last minute questions, thoughts? Feedback for our team. We value what you provide us as far as feedback. We use that to enhance our training and engagement with you all moving forward. 44, does the calibration application requires comments for all scores? Yes, it does. If there is a prompt that does not require a response, put in A. Okay, Dr. Loman, anyone else from the team have any last minute thoughts, feedback, questions?
I think we're good to go.
All righty. Okay, so next steps, everyone. If you can give me a few hours, let the video recording download. I will clean that up and send that with the PowerPoint with some examples of comments that you all submitted, best practices that you shared, as well as some questions that were in the chat box from earlier today. Give me until no later than 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, if you have access to the CCIP, please work to get your calibrations completed. Ludia will be ready to view the system to manage that process. So as soon as she knows you're done with that 19 out of 19, she'll start to assign you. For those that are still waiting for access, please note, as I have been stating this whole week, I'm still working with our IT department. As soon as I hear back of any updates and can give you access, I will email you, those folks, directly with that update. And then I'll reiterate this process to you as part of your next steps. Again, the RFA is your best friend. Please refer to the grant reader guidelines, the scoring rubric, the scoring rating guidelines. Any other supplemental documents you received in your invitation email will help you get through this process, as well as addressing what's in this training recording and the slides that you will receive. All right, with that all being said, It is my pleasure to assist you and to serve you in this role on behalf of the 21st Century team. Thank you all for joining us and helping us again with our grant review process for 21st Century for the FY21 competition. We look forward to getting your responses through the CCIP. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us directly for assistance. And we wish you well in your reads. June 29th is the deadline. Please be sure to follow that. And I believe the system closes at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time that day. Thank you, everyone. Continue to have a wonderful day and an awesome weekend ahead. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you.